Hey there, it's meteorologist Jamey Singleton. Hopefully you're able to hear me over all the scanner traffic. I'm getting tons of reports of tree damage coming down with this line of storms that I've been watching since this morning. Let me see if I can turn some of this stuff down here for you because I've got a lot of sources here coming in. It's basically nonstop tree damage that I'm hearing about, and that's never a good thing. This is some very humid, very hot air that we've been forecasting. Temperatures up in near 100 today, and we've got very high amounts of lightning, wind, and rain occurring now in the Franklin County, where we've got a severe thunderstorm warning that's in effect. Now, this is such a fast-moving system that we've got severe thunderstorm warnings in effect in areas that the sun is out in. And that may seem a little bit premature, but what the Weather Service does in a situation like this is it goes ahead and it'll let you know that these storms mean business, and it will go ahead and put those warnings out well in advance of the actual storms themselves. This reminds me a little bit of a derecho in the fact that it's not officially a derecho. Let me go ahead and tell you that, but it's Derecho-Like. Okay, that's a lot of storm reports here out of, I don't know if you can see the icons, Montgomery County, all through West Virginia here. We've got storm reports, mainly just wind damage reports coming in here. And of course, that can create some structural damage. But we have this bow echo here that started in Ohio today, and it's feeding off of all that warm air. So it's coming right down through the area, now entering Franklin County and Bedford County. So if you're in Bedford and Rocky Mount and Patrick County and Stewart, all these areas here, you're going to get hit. This is not going to fall apart. It looks like it's really producing just a lot of wind in a very short amount of time, and a lot of thunder and lightning too. Lightning can also do some damage out there as well. And I've been looking at some of the other cameras and looking at what's going on there. So let's read for you this Franklin County warning that's in effect. And while I do that, I'm going to switch you over to the 3D look at the radar picture. And this is a look at the wind speeds. Now, we've seen these wind speeds jumping up today. I'm going to see if I can get this cropped a little better for you so you can see it across our area. I was using it for another post earlier today. Hopefully you got the advanced warning on Patreon and on this page, but you can see there Blacksburg 51 mile per hour winds, Roanoke seeing a gust that was up to 20, and then you see that line comes in, it goes up to 56 miles per hour. And a lot of these wind gusts aren't getting measured because the power is going out in some of these areas. So it's not the most brutal type squall line we've seen, but each one of these little blue dots up there across West Virginia is a storm report of wind damage, and you can see that continuing to make it over the mountains. So we do have numerous severe thunderstorm warnings in effect. Franklin County, Henry County, Botetourt County until 6:45. Also includes, of course, Roanoke getting hit very hard. Also just issued, we've got Independence and Grayson County. We've had a renegade storm there you see over southern Franklin County. Right there had a little rotation to it as it passed into Pittsylvania County. And it's going on into the south central parts of Halifax County very soon. But this is the main line that I'm watching here very carefully for you. So as we go back to our main monitor here, you can see some very heavy rain in Botetourt County. It's also nearing the Rockbridge County, Lexington area. And you can see some of these wind reports here. We've got tree fell on a car at Woodlawn Drive, Price's Fork Road. National Weather Service in their parking lot, they've got a tree down. Also in Merrimack. Let's see, trees down all over the place in Blacksburg. And then you go up to Roanoke County, train spotter reporting a tree down in Catawba. So no doubt, anywhere in this area, Montgomery County there near Childress, and that's close to Radford City, trees blown down in this area as well. Tree down at Smith, Franklin, and Mulberry Lane in the Blacksburg. And then this storm report was from this cell north of Danville, where we've got a tree down at the intersection of Pruitt Mountain Lane and Carter Hill Lane. Now, temperatures out in advance of this are still very hot. And hot air and humidity is what these things will feed off of. So if we pop the current temperatures up here, get an idea of the storm fuel that we have available. And they'll pop up here any second, but we've got temperatures in advance of the system still well into the 90s. And then we've also got high amounts of humidity as well. This is a look at the METAR data. Now, this is basically where the storms have passed and where they haven't. You can see it's 92 degrees up there in Lynchburg. Let's see if I can get my drawing tool up here so we can show you what's going on. All of this heat, again, adding to the instability and adding to the, let's see if I can get zoomed in right there, adding to the fuel. These storms are updraft driven. They're taking up the air, and then they're not rotating as much as they are just straight line wind driven, is what I'm trying to say there. So you can see that it's still 92 degrees in Lynchburg, but 74 degrees into Blacksburg. So there's the line right through here. You'll get a quick 20 to 30 degree temperature drop as you go into the 60s here across the NRV, where it's just raining at the moment. But you can see all these 90s here. That is ripe. That's like, I described it on Patreon. This is like jet fuel to thunderstorms. And so we don't need a lot of spin. We just simply have a lot of heat and humidity. And what a thunderstorm does is it eats that heat and humidity up, and it creates the cooler weather out behind it. It's like a Mother Nature's very own way of cooling the atmosphere, basically. I'm going to take you back now to a look at the radar. And this is the velocity data off of one of my other computers. This also shows the size of these warning polygons that are coming out. And I'm not showing you the reflectivity as much because it was weaker a second ago. But this stuff that's coming through Ferrum right now, and I'm starting to hear some chatter on the Franklin County frequencies, that bright yellow, that is a lot of wind. These bright greens were going toward the radar. And what you have to remember is this is radial velocity. It's not measuring pure velocity. So you've got the radar right there near the center of the screen. To the northwest, where those really bright greens are, that's where the wind was coming right perpendicular to the radar. And it's no surprise that once you get out back to the path of this, if you go from the Floyd County radar there, and then you look into Franklin County, the Ferrum, that's where the wind is also perpendicular but going away. So that's where the radar is going to measure the most wind. And you can see that wind makes it right up and over the Blue Ridge Parkway. Some very destructive wind, no doubt, right through 40. Trying to hear a little bit more of what's going on. It also makes its way through the Roanoke Valley area, as I mentioned, gusts up to 50 to 60 miles per hour. This is the actual reflectivity, and it doesn't look as impressive. And if you remember back in our 2011 derecho, again, this will not amount to the destruction that we have with that, but it's similar. Okay, it's similar, and it's a low end version of that, basically. So it's not just ordinary thunderstorms. This is an organized complex that has the outflow already reaching the Rocky Mount area and nearing the Philpott Lake area. Hopefully everyone's off the water at Smith Mountain Lake. Philpott Lake is seeing this as well. The outflow is outrunning the actual rain. And there you see a brand new severe thunderstorm warning issued for the rest of Franklin County and the Martinsville and Ridgeway, all the way down into North Carolina. This one's in effect until 7:30. 60 mile per hour winds, damage to roofs, siding, and trees. That includes Eden, Martinsville, Mount Airy, Rocky Mount, Flat Rock, Mayodan, and Madison. These storms are dropping southeast at 40 miles per hour. They mean business. They have had a history of producing this damage that we've been watching across the area. Not to be outdone, look at the northern edge of our area from Lexington into Glasgow and Buchanan. We've got two things. We've got a ton of lightning. So that's going to put down its own tree damage and electrical fire kind of activity. We've also got a lot of wind in that area that the radar not necessarily is seeing because it's so far north and it's parallel to the wind direction. So it's not going to show up as much. But you can also see that our correlation coefficient drops into the yellows here. And what that's showing me is debris that's in the air. You can see the correlation coefficient here also. So this area right through here is in the cranberry colors. That's the rain. What is the radar picking up here in these kind of peach colors? That is debris. Those are leaves, twigs, branches, and everything else that's getting blown out ahead of this, picking up dirt and dust, and also the wildlife out there. Some of the bugs and birds flying out ahead of this thing, it's being picked up by the radar. So the warning came out not for the rain that's behind here, but for the actual wind. And the wind's about to get really robust here around Stewart down to Cana, and just now going into Henry County. It's nearing Oak Level right now. Rocky Mount's got some high wind at the moment. Westlake, you're about to see the wind slam into you. And again, it's coming in at a really fast clip. You saw it update right there on your screen. So it's a very dangerous setup here, and you want to stay away from windows and treat this almost as you would a tornado warning. You can sometimes get some spinny action with some of this stuff, but of course the main threat would be the high winds. Take you back to my radar Omega radar system real quick, and you can see that new warning there popping up. And you'll excuse all these scanners going off, but just to give you an idea, tree down in a roadway in Franklin County, just heard that. I'm going to show you how strong these actual winds are here. Let's go. So we zoom in to southern Franklin County. You can see some of these pixels are showing us about 70 mile per hour winds. I don't know if that's legit or not, but the rest of the area has about 50 mile per hour winds, at least as seen by the radar. And there, if we look near Prullman, we've also got a pixel there showing up near 85 miles per hour. What happens is the wind will come down to the ground and accelerate as it hits the ground and spreads out, kind of like a microburst. Only this is not a microburst. It's an area several counties wide, almost the entire western part of the state, that's producing all of this wind. Tree fell, 8600 block of Booker T. Washington Highway. So we're getting a lot of, I'm in Franklin County, you're going to hear more of those reports as we see them right now, but that's the most dangerous wind right now that I'm seeing going right through Franklin County. And even on the radar picture, 35 to 45 mile per hour winds occurring with this. The radar's not going to do this justice, though, as it continues. One lane blocked on 122, and in a second I'll show you some of the VDOT cameras. One of them was actually upside down not too long ago in the Blacksburg area, and I'm assuming that's because the wind blew that over. We're going to change color tables really fast as we are live, and we get to do all this stuff. I get to do all this behind the scenes stuff right in front of you here, and depending on what the situation is, I use different color tables, but try to make it as easy as possible to see some of this stuff. All right, so our reds don't show up as much here. Let me get rid of my magnifying glass. But again, you can see, at least on this one, color table. This is the outflow boundary here. So I'm going to show you that real quick. This is where we've got the leading edge of the wind that's going right now through Bedford. It's nearing Redwood. It's also going right over the Parkway right now in Franklin County. There's a little delay here between you watching me and this going out from the radar and getting into my system and all the other systems that you're watching on television. But you do need to be inside a sturdy shelter away from windows. And believe it or not, if you can get out of a trailer, get into a neighbor's, if it's a brick home or whatever, you need to do that because these winds are creating damage. They've already caused a lot of damage back through here. You can hear all the reports that continue to come in. Our first responders are very busy. They're our heroes, and they are going out, sawing these trees down and opening the roads. We've got a brand new severe thunderstorm warning out for Waynesboro. And we've also got a brand new one out just issued. You see it flashing there on your screen for Lynchburg and Timberlake. This one's in effect until, let's see, 76 more minutes. So we'll read that for you real quick. You can see it on your screen. Western Appomattox, Campbell County, Northern Pennsylvania County, Amherst, Lynchburg until 7:45. Pretty much the whole area at some point is going to be under a severe thunderstorm warning. You can see from Rocky Mount to Pleasant View moving east at 30. Some of this is moving faster than 30, I think. Winds up to 60 miles per hour. And that's what does the damage. Once you get wind above 50 to 55 miles per hour, that's going to take down your fresh trees. Lynchburg, Bedford, Rocky Mount, Alta Vista, Amherst, Hurt, and Chatham. So we know that this has done damage, and we know it's going to cause more damage as we go into the rest of the evening. For about another 2 hours or so is what I'm looking at. And you can zoom it out here and kind of get a better idea of the size of these warnings. They're very large warnings because it's known that there's going to be severe weather in here. So the Weather Service will go ahead and issue these huge polygons in yellow where they know that wind is headed. And that's indication. Whenever you see that, you know you've got a fast-moving storm and or you've got a lot of wind that's breathing down. Do not get caught off guard by the fact that we don't see a lot of red in here. We had that with the derecho in 2011. Again, I don't think it's going to be that bad. It doesn't appear to be that severe, but it's derecho-like. And I may get in trouble for saying that, but I need to get your attention because this is more than just ordinary thunderstorm activity that I'm seeing across the area as well. I do think, you know, there are times where you should say things like this and kind of make the analogy just to show you why I'm using that wording. Every one of these orange dots through here that you see my mouse moving over, these are wind reports, and it started around Columbus, Ohio today, this morning, where we had several trees down in that area, moved into the West Virginia area about the time I was putting out a Patreon update this morning to around lunchtime. Hopefully gave you about 6 hours to prepare there. But much of West Virginia has trees down and power lines arcing. Let's see. I'm trying to see if we have any other reports here. Trees blocking most of the roads there. Just a ton of that activity. And you can also see in Northern Virginia, we've got also a lot of trees down as well. The skies are getting dark here where I'm at. And if I have to take shelter, I will. I'm going to show you right now what this storm looks like in 3D as we look inside some of this activity now. We're going to go into Franklin County here, and I'm going to move the window down. May have to minimize a few screens here to get this to pop up right. It may be better if I... That is a 3D look at things, though. Let's just look at it while we've got it up there. There's Bedford County looking north before we tilt it. Now we're tilting things a little bit, and these cloud tops are going up to about 40,000 feet, definitely producing a lot of darkness in the sky as the sun's trying to set behind that, and you can see the rain's right on the doorstep of Rocky Mount. But the actual wind, if you look at the wind, it's out ahead of Rocky Mount. It's out ahead of the rain by about 5 or 10 miles, and that's what's producing a lot of the damage out there. We can also do cross sections. I think that may be more informative than just looking at it in 3 dimensions. So if we do a cross section of what's going on in Franklin County right now, we'll pop this window up, and you're going to see kind of this dome-like effect. That's just because that's the way the radar shoots out from Floyd County. So that's a function of the Floyd County radar. But if you look at some of these velocities here, you can see higher up in the sky, and I'll have to read it for you, but we've got wind at about 35 to 45 miles per hour in some of these brighter colors here. And then very close to the ground, we've also got about 40 mile per hour winds that are occurring here. This is a look at how the rain kind of towers up into the sky. That's an indication of severe storms. And this is slamming down into the ground. So again, if we look at it from this vantage point, we're now looking more to the west. See if I can get a normal looking vantage point here. This shows it very clearly, the outflow right through there. So I'm going to outline it for you and then I'll erase it. But this is the outflow. So this is all the wind that's going about 50 to 45 miles per hour, gusting up to 60 miles per hour. And then the rain starts about right here. So the rain may not be the biggest story. I do think it's mainly a wind driven system. And what happens is these storms tower up into the air. As you see here, they're towering up. And then what happens is they pull some of the jet stream winds down with them. And that's where you can get a lot of the tree damage. That's exactly what we're seeing out across the area right now. Got a tree leaning on power lines in Martinsville. I think that was from the earlier storm. Now, this area that I just highlighted in Martinsville, you're about to get your next area of wind, and you can also see that most of the area now under all these complicated looking yellow polygons, and a lot of lightning for whatever reason on the northern end of the system here as you go into Rockbridge County and Lexington. So let's look at what the roads are doing and what our power outage situation looks like. This is a look at Virginia. I'm going to refresh it now, and you can see that we have seen a lot of power outage activity there in Giles County, where we have 1,000 or about 1,700 folks without power in Giles County. We've got about 523 out in Bland County. You can see the highlighted area showing where the storm came from. About 270 out in Highland County. These numbers are going to continue to go up. 540 out in Franklin County. That may change momentarily. Also remember that even if the storm passes your area, the power company feeds power from all directions. And one of the things I've always noticed here where I live in Franklin County is after the storm, our power will go out because sometimes we get fed from the Lynchburg area or areas out east. So keep that in mind as well. And also remember that a lot of your lightning will occur before and after the storm. West Virginia, let's refresh this. You can look at the state here. We've got 76,665 folks without power in West Virginia. This moved right on through Monroe County. 3,200 folks without power in Monroe County, West Virginia, near Raynell there. There's about 8,200 customers, so that's a fair bit. It's like 40% of the folks without power. You can see on the scale there, it gets up into the 50% range. And we've got a fair amount of folks in Greenberg County, also in the Summers County, West Virginia, without power. And those outages continue all the way back. So that's taking resources from a good part of the area. It's not just a localized system, in other words. If we go into the actual live power outage map, this is from AEP. This may be a little more current. We've got a few customers in Roanoke, about 30 out, 507 in Henry County. You get the idea, and you can also see those higher amounts that are coming in through West Virginia. You can start to see the skies clearing here on this VDOT camera through 460. This is where we had a lot of wind earlier today. I was looking at some of the camera activity here, and one of them, again, was upside down. Let's see if I can find that just to show you. There it is. I think this is because the wind toppled that thing. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's don't really have upside down Earth going on in Blacksburg. It had to be because of wind damage that's been occurring there. You can also see a fair amount of traffic there. We're usually expected there in the Roanoke Valley area. 581, we've got traffic moving okay. That's some good news. Roanoke may have avoided some of this anyway. There is a random camera on this map that doesn't line up with the Franklin County camera. I think it's here. Yeah, this is Franklin County right up the road from me on Wirtz Road. And you can see it's raining there, and there's some wind in there as well. Large trees down on the scanner, what I'm hearing. And again, this may be one of those situations where you're at, it may not be that bad, but where some of these higher gusts can filter down from the clouds, there may be quite a bit of wind damage. And we'll wait and see if this system has blown itself out. You know, we just see some gusty winds right now in Patrick County. Some of the leaves kind of blowing around there. That's the outflow. It looks like it just, I'm looking at the radar, just went through that area. So that's why your leaves are kind of turning up there. And it's there's some truth to that. Getting another tree report. There's some truth to the folklore on the leaves coming up, because usually you have some activity going on in the lower levels that cause that. Now we're out east of this outflow. You can see it's getting dark there in south side where the more than likely a shelf cloud or of some sort is happening. Also notice we've got a fair amount of road activity that's closed here, the Pennsylvania County near Chatham. That may be because of the first storm that we had that moved through a little bit earlier this afternoon. Again, that was not the storm that we had earlier, or that we had earlier in West Virginia. That was a separate storm. But we've got lanes closed on Callens Road, Maple Road due to weather. All lanes are closed here near Callens. A lot of road closures near Callens, actually. But if I look at the camera there, I see some traffic there, so where that camera location's at. Heading into Martinsville, don't see much more than breezes at the moment. It would be kind of rare to see something that's going to jump out at us. But I can tell you, it looks like Bedford's getting hit pretty hard. Let's go into that area. And we can see a lot of lightning there. This is near that interchange at the bottom of your screen. That guy's turning on to 460, and 122's back on the north face of this. And the minute market's right off the screen there. Looking into Lynchburg, where we've been hit so very hard. You're out ahead of this, but you are under a severe thunderstorm warning, and you can see the sky getting dark there off to the west. That's the impending severe weather that's coming into your area as well. So I would say power outages, slow going on the roads. Down trees can hit homes. They can hit structures, and they can damage them just as much as a tornado in situations like this. So you want to be aware of that. And all of these icons here, I think you can see the little blue icons here showing up. All of these icons that are either in blue or in orange are more than likely weather-related road closures. And that's why I keep them up here for you, so you can kind of see that. So a lot of wind coming through the area right now, and the power outages may continue to mount up as we go into the evening hours. Now, believe it or not, no computer model had today's storm. So this brings up another very important thing that I want to talk about. It's very important to follow an actual meteorologist when we're looking at a situation like this, because if you go back in time and you look at the earlier runs of this, what we call this is the HER, and it's supposed to be a pretty good model. So let's look at that. Let's go back to the 12Z run of the HER, and I use this model a lot. But if you look at that run, it had some storms coming through tonight. It didn't have anything coming through this afternoon. And I knew this was off because if you go back to the west here, there's nothing that was showing up. But if you go to one of my other sites that I showed you on Patreon, we could see that storm moving through. And it was the only model that had it. Just got a new lightning strike right over Bedford. And as I say that, I'm talking about 20 different computer models. Out of 20 different models, only one model had this line reaching us to the degree it did, and it verified. It's an experimental model, so you're not going to find it on TV stations or anything, but I've got access to it, and the reason is because of your support. Our sponsor support, First Choice Tree Services. They may be busy anywhere in this area. Give them a call, because that helps me obtain access to these newer developed models so that I can warn you ahead of time if I see something that's out there. Normally, if I had a computer model that was, only one model out of 20 was showing a storm, I wouldn't believe it. But in this case, you had to use actual meteorology and say, okay, well, it's 96 degrees outside. What would stop all of this storm activity? The dew points are up in the 70s. We've still got a dew point of 75 up and around Lynchburg right now in the Rustburg, and this storm continues to plow into that area. A little bit of a outflow boundary fizzling here, maybe going farther away from the radar, but you can see the leading edge of that wind now nearing the Stewart area. Also Martinsville, you can see it rush right through Rocky Mount. Smith Mountain Lake seeing a lot of wind as well. This is moving very close to Lynchburg. And if you live anywhere north and west of this area, you're just dealing with the cleanup now. the storm's over. You've got a lot, though, of danger on the roadways because of all the trees and power lines that are down, and some fires as well. Now, to the south and to the east, Halifax, we've got a very dangerous storm that's nearing you right now in Halifax, South Boston, and Cluster Springs. This is a new severe thunderstorm warning that's in effect for Elmo, Cluster Springs, just south of Crystal Hill in Halifax County. This storm looks dangerous. Looks like it could have some hail as well. It's moving east at 25 miles per hour. That includes Clover, Ingram, Red Oak, and Scottsburg. And you can have 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, enough to do some tree damage in this area as well. And as a matter of fact, as I show you that, you can see these brighter colors just east of Elmo showing us where we've got, looking at 41.4 mile per hour winds, and that's at about 5,800 feet. It could be even stronger below that, but it's because the radar beam at that point is that high up because the earth curves underneath it. Just amazing to see how much lightning we've got for whatever reason here, and it may be a little bit of a spin happening right now, or some kind of microburst activity right now. This is in Rockbridge. No, this is in Amherst County. I apologize. Still, Rockbridge is getting hammered by a lot of lightning up and down Interstate 81 and 60 here, but I've got a little bit of green showing up there, and this is more than likely microburst activity, and I'll show you why. These are next to each other, but they're not side by side. They are in front of one another. So this is wind going toward the radar, and this is wind going away from the radar. So what you've got is you've got really strong winds that are slamming into the ground, and they move out in all directions. And when it does that, from the radar standpoint, you see the wind just separate right through there. So that is very close to Big Island, just north of Big Island into Amherst County. This is... Get rid of that. Getting some ghost frequencies here, probably a real frequency, I just can't hear it because of all the rain fade. But this is just to the west of Amherst there, and that's 60 right there. You see that brown line. So that kind of jumps out at me anyway. Livingston, Nelson County, you're also under a severe thunderstorm warning, and that includes Albemarle, Augusta County, Stanton, Harrisonburg, all this area until 7:45. That's issued from the National Weather Service up in Sterling. I'll go back here, we'll look at the correlation coefficient, because again, you can see all these random peach color. Basically, it's not cranberry, it's just kind of blue and speckled. This is debris that's the radar is picking up out across Henry County, and could be very fine particles of roofs, some shingles, things of that nature, just little tree limbs, leaves, insects out ahead of the storm, birds, you name it. What it's not is it's not rain. This is where the rain's at, and you can see that is actually further back within it here. So we're not dealing with a ton of rain, it's more wind than anything. Stand by, I'm getting a call coming in. All right, that was a public service call, but lots and lots of trees down here. So I'm about to sign off for right now, but what I want to show you is we'll put this in motion. And you can see a definite curve to it, definite bow echo. We will pray that this has weakened somewhat, but I don't think it is. It looks pretty strong. May have been running out of gas in the south side, but it is hard to tell from my vantage point on the radar whether or not the radar is just not picking it up as well, or the storm has lived its life here. So we'll continue to watch this. I can tell you that, let's check out temperatures again. It's still 90 degrees up here in the central Virginia, just to the south of Lynchburg. Lynchburg's 87 now, but look at that dew point of 75 there near Rustburg. And you've got temperatures up in the lower 90s all the way to Richmond and Farmville, all the way down to South Hill. But these storms do their job. They've air conditioned us here back to the west, where a lot of people don't have power, and the only good news is it's not hot. It's 67 degrees. There's going to be some very dense fog in this area tonight because of that. Even Roanoke's now at 74. My temperature's at 71. Not picking up a lot of rainfall where I'm at. Not a lot of thunder either. We've got a new tree down report coming in, Lafayette Road, Roanoke Road. Just a cluster of tree reports coming in now out of the Blacksburg area as first responders continue to call in to the Weather Service and go out in the field there. There's also a lot of weather nerds out in the Virginia Tech community there. Tree blocking the roads in Montgomery County. Tree fell on a 2600 block of Ben Hill Road here. And I'm looking back to see tree down on A.G. Street in Christiansburg. Now that's hot off the press. These are coming in off the weather wire. Now let's see if I see anything that stands out beyond just the tree warnings. Looks like western Franklin County now is out of the severe thunderstorm warning. Storm Prediction Center was watching this gust front. Strong winds dropping southeast. Trees down on power lines. You get the gist. So if you're still in the path of this, if you are still from Stewart, Danbury, Martinsville, all the way down to Mount Airy in North Carolina, and if you're in Halifax and South Boston, well, you've got your very own storm to worry about here. This is a very strong storm. It's got a little bit of spin with it and may have some hail in it as well. It is rotating just a bit, and looks like there is some hail right in through here, right in that little area. And you see that showing up there, about 0.59 inches. Some of that's going to melt before it gets to the ground. But that's a sign of the health of this storm as it continues to move off to the east. It's going to hit South Boston dead on. And actually, while I'm on the air, let me pull up... let's look at that radar, but let's also go to our VDOT cameras. I think we've got a camera in South Boston. We don't see the sky here as much, but we do see the traffic there moving right along. Looks like some breezes there kicking up a little bit. But here in a few minutes, we may be able to actually see the storm as it hits South Boston. And at times you're going to lose the signal because of the storm that is indeed moving through the area. Going into Lynchburg now, where you've got a little bit more in the way of wind and rain in your area. Folks there using the headlights there on 460, no doubt. The good news for Lynchburg is that this isn't the type of storm that we had earlier in the season, where we're not really looking at much in the way of really heavy rain. Although, as I say that, it's not light either, but the storm's moving pretty fast. You can see here the heavier rain right now through Amherst County, Forks of Buffalo, and it looks like we just had this storm warning issued again for 60-mile-per-hour winds. That expires in about an hour. Just to the northwest of Lynchburg for that cell that we were just watching. So one of the advantages of watching this live is that you can kind of see areas that don't have warnings yet. You get the early warning here as we analyze it live for you. Just some rain, lighter rain back through the NRV. Again, the big danger zone right now is right along 29, Timberlake to Lynch Station, Alta Vista, Gretna, down through Dry Fork, and maybe even Danville in the Martinsville and Ridgeway. You are still under a severe thunderstorm warning there in yellow as this continues to move through. I'll just say that you can hear all the scanners behind me. Those are people that are going out and cleaning up the mess from this, and if it hasn't hit your area yet in Southside, it will. More than likely, you're going to see some tree damage around the area. So keep a watchful eye to the sky, stay away from windows, and take this very seriously. It'll be over with in probably about an hour and a half. Also, batten down the hatches in South Boston, as this is a dangerous storm too, with 1-inch hail and a little bit of rotation there indicated on the radar picture.